I stepped onto the grass, carrying a stack of woolen blankets. I was preparing for tonight's full moon celebration. I particularly loved our monthly clan gatherings. Everyone would come together to eat, laugh, and share stories about our clan's history and the gods. Then, those members who could shift into wolf form would dash off into the woods, while the rest of us stayed put, pretending not to feel a twinge of envy. For 18 years now, I've been the one who always stays by the fire, watching over the cubs, tending to the flames. Days like these had long since grown tiresome for me. I yearned for my own wolf to awaken within me, yearned to prove that I wasn't just some useless lump of flesh. I turned around with a smile, following the sound of my father's voice. He'd just returned from the woods with Alpha and Gamma, having finished their rounds for tonight's gathering. "Hi, Dad," I called out as I set the blankets down on a log. Then I picked up a few more and spread them across the logs near the campfire. These ones are more about comfort than warmth. Werewolves are naturally warm-blooded, even someone like me, who doesn't have a wolf inside. "Are you looking forward to tomorrow?" Alpha Mark walked toward me, accompanied by Gamma Jonas and his father. "A little bit," I replied. He, my father, and Alpha had been lifelong best friends. Ever since Mark took over as leader of the wolf pack, he'd appointed my father as Beta and Jonas as Gamma. Everyone had long expected it. The three of us had grown up together. My older brother, Edler, and Alpha's son, James, were inseparable buddies. Everyone assumed I'd become close with Jonas's daughter, Cindy, but somehow, we just never clicked. We maintained a superficial cordiality only out of respect for our family's bond. "I think my pumpkin is feeling a bit nervous," Dad said, putting his arm around my shoulder and pulling me closer. "That's right. Once you turn 18, you'll be able to sense your mate, and she'll recognize you, too," Alpha chuckled. "She's still way too young." Dad frowned, but that only set off a round of hearty laughter from both of his friends. "Everything they're saying is half right. I am indeed nervous, afraid I won't be able to sense my mate, but what scares me even more is that my wolf spirit has never awakened, and I've never managed to shift into my werewolf form. Usually, werewolves awaken between the ages of 16 and 25. The earlier you awaken, the stronger your powers will be. James shifted at 16 minus a month. My older brother shifted at 16 and 7 months, and Cindy just turned 17, while I'm almost 18 now, and even during the full moon, I haven't felt the slightest twinge of transformation. I'm afraid that even if I do find a mate, he'll think I'm too weak." A few hours later, I was sitting by the hearth, laughing along with everyone else. Veteran warrior Nick was telling a story about how he'd defeated a vampire. Most of the clan had already shifted into wolves and were running through the forest, but I still hadn't felt any urge to transform. As usual, I stayed behind to care for the cubs and teenagers. Just after midnight, the clan members began returning one by one, much earlier than usual. That's when Mom and Luna Joy walked over, arm in arm, carrying a 3-tiered birthday cake between them, a white frosted cake adorned with sugar flowers, topped with 2 candles shaped like the numbers 1 and 8. "Happy birthday, dear," Mom said as she hugged me. Luna followed close behind, adding, "I hope you'll find the right partner soon." "Time to blow out the candles and make a wish," Dad chimed in as he walked over. "Let's wait until the elders get back," Mom reminded us. No sooner had she finished speaking than my older brother, James, and Cindy emerged from the forest. I didn't even notice my brother's apology. My entire attention was drawn to a scent that blended sandalwood with pineapple. Even without the wolves around, I knew instantly. This was the scent of a mate. As I turned around, I nearly bumped into James at the edge of the forest. His gaze locked onto mine, filled with the same astonishment I felt. The lingering aroma of sandalwood and pineapple still lingered in my nostrils, yet James's eyes had already shifted, from initial surprise to an icy, unyielding coldness. He took a step toward me, his movements deliberate yet unmistakably resolute. The murmurs of the tribe around us suddenly fell silent, leaving only the crackling of the campfire, as if it were softly playing accompaniment to the impending heartbreak. "Amelia," he said, his voice devoid of any warmth. Even the familiar nickname, Amy, was left unsaid. There's no way it could ever work. My body went rigid. Before I could even process what he'd just said, he stepped right in front of me. His towering figure cast a shadow that completely enveloped me. I'm the alpha of the future. The pack needs a Luna who can fight side by side, one with a strong wolf spirit. Not you, a weakling who can't even awaken the wolf within yourself. James, what are you saying? Dad took a step forward, trying to stand between us, but James sidestepped him effortlessly. His gaze swept over me without a trace of lingering affection, only stubborn determination toward his duty. Uncle Ron, this is between her and me, and it's also a matter for the pack. I can't let the entire wolf pack fall into a passive position just because of a mate who can't shift. But you're the partner chosen by the gods. Mom's voice broke with sobs as she reached out to grab me, but I instinctively brushed her hand away. Still clinging to that last shred of hope, I stared at James. You said you loved me, James. You really did. That was all in the past, he replied, frowning deeply, his tone even tinged with impatience. Love can't fill your stomach, and it certainly can't protect our pack. You don't have a wolf of your own. Even if you were to awaken someday, you'd still be nothing but a weak wolf, simply unworthy of Alpha Lady's position. I felt my blood rush to my head, only to cool down just as quickly. In a sudden surge of anger, I reached out to grab his arm, wanting him to look me straight in the eyes, wanting to ask him what all those years we'd grown up together meant, what those tender promises had amounted to. But just as my hand touched the sleeve of his coat, he jerked his arm back with such force that I stumbled backward 2 steps, nearly falling onto the rocks beside the campfire. Don't touch me. His voice was as cold as winter ice. I've made up my mind, and there's no turning back. From now on, you and I are no longer potential partners. Each of us will go our separate ways. James. His father exploded with fury, grabbing him by the collar and nearly swinging a fist toward his face. How dare you treat my daughter like that? Alpha immediately stepped forward to pull his father away, his expression grim. Ron, calm down. Calm down, his father roared. He didn't just break Amy's heart. He actually pushed her. Is this the fine son you've raised? James straightened his rumpled collar, his gaze unwavering, even carrying a hint of mockery. She started it first. And what I'm saying is the truth. She never deserved any better in the first place. He turned to look at me, his eyes slicing through my skin like knives. Stop holding on to any illusions, Emiria. You and I have never been from the same world, he said. The surrounding members of our tribe erupted in murmurs. Some wore expressions of reluctant sympathy, others whispered among themselves, and still others fixed their gazes on me with a look full of pity. Standing there, frozen to the core, I felt a sharp, throbbing pain in the arm he'd just pushed away, yet that pain paled in comparison to the agony radiating from my heart. I watched James's resolute back as he walked away, not even turning his head once when Alpha led him off. Finally, I understood. All the hope and anticipation I'd held had shattered into dust the very moment he'd waved goodbye. You'll no longer be able to compete, my father said, his voice icy cold. Every 10 years, our tribe holds a competition, sending 5 healthy, 18-year-old or older members to take part. The outcome determines our tribe's influence and voting power at the summit, a competition James and my older brother had long awaited. A broken romantic relationship is considered a severe emotional trauma, requiring 3 months to fully heal, but the competition was set to take place just 1 month from now. I saw James hesitate, and a flicker of hope ignited in my heart, but then he suddenly said with unwavering resolve, "Well, I'll just skip this year and wait until the next one." With those words, even that last glimmer of hope was extinguished. I grabbed hold of Mom's arm and, through our mental link, told her, "I can't stay here another minute." Mom wrapped me protectively behind her and led me through the crowd of villagers who were parting to let us pass. Their eyes were filled with pity, and that pity hurt me even more than the absence of wolves ever could. Back home, Mom took me upstairs, helped me change into pajamas, and tucked me snugly under the covers. I curled up into a tight ball, turning my back to her, and tears began streaming down my face before I could stop them. Mom sat by the bed, gently stroking my hair and softly humming an ancient lullaby. After what felt like an eternity, Dad also came into the room and sat down beside me, resting his hands on my legs. I wasn't asleep yet. When I heard Alpha's voice drifting downstairs, I couldn't help but eavesdrop. "How is she doing now?" Alpha asked. "What do you think?" Ever since James treated her the way he did, she hasn't said a single word. My father's voice was filled with anger I'd never seen before. "I'm sorry, Ron," Alpha said sincerely. "Is he really determined?" "Yes." "Then what are you going to do?" my father pressed. "You know as well as I do that breaking the bond between mates without good reason is a grave offense. Do you really want James expelled from the pack?"
"Ron."
"He's my only son, the natural leader," Alpha retorted. "She can at best give birth to just one weak wolf, and there's a reason why James rejected her." "She's my daughter," my father roared. "I've raised her as my own, but she really isn't cut out to be Luna. You know how heavy the responsibilities of that position are." For years later, I walked through the back door of the bakery, set down the 2 bags of flour, and immediately received a sweet kiss from Mrs. Anderson. "Thanks, Amy. I really don't know what I'd do without you," she said to me happily. "I feel honored to be able to help," I replied, truly meaning every word. Over the past 4 years, these 2 sisters have been incredibly kind to me. They've helped me feel at home in this small town, introduced me to all the right people, as they put it, and made sure I got out of my apartment and did things other than just work. In return, I'm more than happy to lighten their load by taking on some of the heavier chores. As the sisters gradually grow older, seeing them work so hard fills me with guilt. My strength falls far short of that of a full-fledged werewolf, but at least it's stronger than that of most of my ordinary peers. I've come to accept my identity as a latent werewolf, a werewolf who lacks true wolfishness, or whose wolfish nature is so faint that it's virtually undetectable. "This makes it so much easier for me to get along with people," Mrs. Anderson said to me. "There's a little treat for you over there on the counter." "You really didn't have to go to all the trouble." "Thank you so much," I said, taking a bite of the still warm Danish pastry and letting out a contented sigh. "It's such a pleasure watching you enjoy my treats," the elderly lady said with a smile. "Every morning we do this. I fetch flour from the pantry for her, and she, in return, gives me a little snack and that absolutely delicious coffee of hers. I keep insisting that she doesn't need to go to all this trouble, but she just won't hear of it. I'm on a lunch shift. I'll be back before dark," I said as I headed out, clutching my to-go coffee cup. "Honey, have a great day. And if Jesse asks you out again, maybe you could give him a chance." As soon as I turned around, the door slammed shut. Jesse was the town's most eligible bachelor. Though, to be honest, in this little town, that wasn't really anything remarkable. Still, he'd been a star quarterback in high school. He was handsome, hardworking, and owned a farm that actually made real money. All in all, he was quite the catch. Ever since I'd arrived here 4 years ago, Jesse had been trying to hit on me. But unlike the local women, I'd turned him down every single time. Not just the first time, but every single time after that too. It had become an ongoing joke around town, and I even knew people were betting on when I'd finally give in. Jesse himself was something special. He never took it personally when I turned him down. Like everyone else, he'd always joked about it. Over the years, we'd become good friends. When I walked into the little diner, Chef Richie and Mrs. Jones greeted me. I took the last sip of coffee from my cup, carefully avoiding spilling it onto my mint green uniform. "Cece is getting married to ketchup. Could you grab some napkins for me?"
Mrs. Jones asked.
"No problem," I replied as I made my way toward the front of the restaurant to greet my other friend. Yes, during my time in this small town, I'd only managed to make 2 real friends, but that was already 2 more than I'd originally expected. Cece was 1 year older than me and happier and more optimistic than ever before. Normally, the little diner only needed 1 waitress at a time. But right now, it was peak tourist season, which meant we'd need 2 waitresses. And that also meant we'd have to hire another temporary waitress, because Cece and I simply couldn't handle all the shifts by ourselves. This year has been absolutely terrible. We just happened to get stuck with Dara. Dara's not a bad kid. It's just that she's clumsy, easily distracted, and most of the time, she seems to live in her own little world rather than in the real one. To be honest, she usually causes far more trouble than she ever helps out. Still, Mrs. Jones says Dara needs to step outside the house and really start engaging with the world around her. She's particularly passionate about rescuing others. Just like some elderly ladies take in stray cats, Mrs. Jones specializes in helping homeless people. I can't really argue with that, after all. She's saved me once before. She's also helped Sess, but in a different way. Both Sess and I are utterly devoted to this lady, so we don't mind at all letting Dara stay at the restaurant. I'm so glad to see you, Sess said as she walked over to greet me. We gave each other a hug, then went right back to work. How was your trip? She asked as we walked along. It was pretty good, I said. Yesterday was supposed to be my day off, and I told everyone that I'd be heading out today to clear my head, take a little tour, and just relax. What I actually did was drive as far away as possible, while still managing to get home before the end of the workday. In just a few days, it'll be my mother's birthday, which means I need to send her a postcard. Usually, I just write something simple. I'm doing fine, and I wish her a happy birthday. I've also sent greeting cards for my father's and brother's birthdays, as well as for the end of the Lunar New Year. For a werewolf, it's almost like celebrating Christmas and New Year all in one big festive occasion. I drove to a remote little town so that the postage wouldn't reveal my exact address. I'm not even sure anymore whether sending these 4 postcards every year is an act of kindness or sheer cruelty. I just wanted them to know I'm okay. They really didn't need to worry at all. And honestly, I'm doing pretty well. Life may not be perfect, but it's still manageable. That dull ache deep in my stomach is still there, though it doesn't hurt quite as much anymore. Or maybe I've just gotten used to the pain. Either way, it doesn't bother me nearly as much now as it did when it first started. It reminds me that I'm still alive. I'm a survivor, and I'm a fighter. I've built my life from scratch, and even though I don't have much, I'm proud of what I've accomplished. Did you see that handsome guy who was sitting at your table just now?
Cece asked me.
It was lunchtime rush hour, and the restaurant was packed with locals and tourists alike. I glanced over at the table she was pointing to, the only empty one left in our section. When I caught sight of him, my whole body suddenly froze. He's a werewolf. Every single one of my senses is telling me that. To make matters even worse, he happens to be an alpha werewolf. My mouth went dry, and my legs felt as though they'd lost all sensation. I simply couldn't move a muscle. Cece, could you do me a favor and take that table away? I'm willing to trade you 2 or 3 of my own tables for it, even the one that's been occupied by 4 kids, I asked. I could hear the urgency in my voice. Are you sure, Amy? Have you actually met him yet? He's absolutely irresistible, she said. You can have it all, I replied. She wasn't wrong. The alpha looked just like most alphas, tall and powerfully built, brimming with confidence. Add to that his golden hair, which seemed to carry an otherworldly aura all its own, coupled with a touch of playful mischief, and those piercing, deep blue eyes, and he was simply mouth-watering. Still, Alpha never fails to keep me on my toes, especially when it comes to him. He's the very first wolf I've encountered since leaving the pack, and I don't want to attract any unnecessary attention. I know he's already figured out who I am. If I can spot him in a room full of humans, then with his fully developed alpha senses, it'd be a piece of cake for him to notice me. Cece walked over to him and took his order. I watched as she flirted with him, and he responded with a polite smile. I did my best not to pay him any mind and kept my distance, though it was kind of hard, given that he was sitting right in the section of the restaurant where I was. I think I handled it pretty well. When he finally paid the bill and left, I let out a sigh of relief. Surprisingly, he hadn't even tried to strike up a conversation with me. You really missed out, Cece said. He's handsome, friendly, and doesn't come across as weird at all. Plus, he tipped amazingly generously. She added, Want me to split the tip with you?
She went on to ask.
I shook my head. That tip was well-deserved. Even if the customer who'd come in with 4 kids hadn't given much, it certainly wasn't stingy. I'd rather sacrifice the tip than have to deal with him. For the rest of that day, I remained on high alert. My nerves were on edge, and I kept looking around constantly, making sure that elusive alpha wasn't lurking somewhere nearby. Honey, are you okay? Mrs. Jones asked as I prepared to leave. I'm fine, but thanks for asking, I replied. You just look a little well, I'm not exactly sure, she said. A bit tense, Rich chimed in helpfully. Yeah, that's the right word, she agreed. I'm fine. I just didn't get enough sleep last night. I'd planned to go home and take a quick nap. I'm sure that'll do the trick, I lied. This gives me an excuse to stay home. Oh, poor thing. Just go ahead and do that. Shall I ask Dara to bring over some dinner?
Mrs. Jones asked.
She really was a remarkable woman. No thanks, Mrs. Jones. I appreciate your kindness, but I'm actually looking forward to making dinner myself, I told her. After telling so many lies in one day, I'd surely end up with a stomachache if this kept up. All right then, you'd better get busy. Just give me a call if you need anything. Thanks, Mrs. Jones, I said, giving her a hug. I hurried home and closed the door behind me. Alpha was gone. I was safe now, and he'd leave town too, and everything would return to normal. Yet that normalcy soon vanished like smoke in the wind, because the very next day, Alpha showed up again, even coming over for breakfast. He sat down at one of my tables again, but not the same one he'd occupied for lunch the day before. To make room for him, I'd practically moved every single table in Dara's place. I was utterly exhausted, yet I had to keep an eye on him while I worked. When Dara tripped and spilled nearly the entire contents of the coffee pot onto his own legs, I couldn't help but let out a groan. Mrs. Jones came out and apologized to me, and I found myself praying to every deity I knew, hoping she wouldn't make me take over that table. Apparently, one of those deities heard my plea. Mrs. Jones herself actually moved her table away. Poor guy, the hot coffee ended up all over his private parts, she told me later, once Alpha had left. Yeah, I could only reply, and he's so handsome, and such a nice guy too. He didn't seem angry or offended in the slightest, and she even left a generous tip in the end. I said. Probably because you've got him completely smitten, I added. Oh, stop joking around, Mrs. Jones said, her face turning red. Richie was standing nearby, chuckling quietly to himself. Maybe hiring Dara wasn't the wisest decision after all, she remarked. Maybe not. But we can't find anyone else right now anyway. I'm sure we'll make it through this season, I told her. You're right. Let's just keep an eye on her and see when she goes to fetch the coffee pot. Everyone agreed. Dara didn't seem to realize just how much commotion she'd caused earlier. In fact, she seemed rather pleased. After all, she wouldn't have to attend to as many tables as usual this time. Luckily, Dara wasn't scheduled for the lunch shift. Then Cess came in, and the two of us worked together to tidy up the restaurant thoroughly. Cess even chatted with me about the latest gossip. If it weren't for her and Mrs. Anderson, I'd have no idea what was going on in town at all. During the lunch rush, Alpha was back again, sitting in my section once more, but this time, he'd switched to a different table. Come on, Cece, just stop picking a fight with me. Just take that table away already. I begged her.
Why?
Not until you tell me why you're so hell-bent on refusing to serve him will I agree to move it, she said to me. I don't know, something about him just doesn't sit right with me. His vibe? Come on, Amy, there's gotta be more to it than that, she insisted. I don't know, I just can't shake this feeling. Could you please just take him away? Please. I used every trick in the book, giving her my most pleading, adorable look.
Fine.
But the only reason I'm agreeing is because guys like him are rare, and he tips like a boss. He really deserves to be treated with kindness after what he went through this morning, she finally said. Thank you. I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life. If you really want to thank me, she asked, could you please help me take care of Jessie? I turned around and saw that Jessie was already sitting at one of her tables.
Of course I can.
Is there something wrong? I asked. I knew that Kathy and Jessie had once been romantically involved back in high school, a month-long flirtation that ended in a one-night stand but left no lasting bitterness between them. On the contrary, the two had remained friends ever since. Oh, well, I might have done something last night that I shouldn't have, Cece said. You slept with Jessie? I asked. Yeah, I guess so. I didn't mean to, it just sort of happened. Come on, You just tripped accidentally. Your pants even came undone, and you almost got pricked by your own sausage. I said, nodding as I spoke. Shut up. And who said that was a sausage anyway? Cece giggled uncontrollably. I'll take Jessie. I'll sit at my table, and that way everyone will be happy, I said.
Deal.
I walked over to Jessie and noticed he was staring at Cece. Hey, Jessie, I said. Hi, Amy. You look really great today, he replied, but his usual casual greeting sounded utterly lifeless. Thanks. Don't worry, she's just a bit flustered right now. Give her a day to calm down, and everything will be fine. Then you should really ask her out, I told him. He stared at me as if I'd spoken Martian. What? I'm talking about Cece. Stop pretending, Jessie. If you don't stop putting on this phony act and start acting like a grown-up already, I'm seriously going to give you a good beating, I said to him. Right, he replied, his cheeks faintly flushing. How about we do it in a few days? Yeah, maybe 2 days at most. Bring her a beautiful bouquet of flowers and be extra gentle with her. I can definitely do that, he nodded. Of course you can. Do you want your usual drink, or shall we try a new flavor? I asked. No, I'll stick with what I always order. Thanks, Amy, he said. No problem. I handed the order over to the kitchen, double-checked that my table was fully stocked with everything needed, and kept an eye on that alpha guy. I'd have to come up with a plan to deal with him. It seemed like he wasn't about to give up easily, but at the same time, he hadn't made any moves to approach me either. So, I'm completely at a loss. What on earth does he want? Once again, he left the restaurant without so much as glancing in my direction. Maybe I'm overthinking this? Or maybe he's just a tourist after all. I'm not even sure whether my many years of living among humans and never once revealing my wolf nature have managed to mask my wolf scent entirely. Just to be safe, after work I headed straight home and stayed indoors the whole time, not stepping out until shortly after lunch the next day. I was working the late shift, and when I saw Cece chatting away with Mrs. Jones, I felt an unexpected surge of joy. She's here, Mrs. Jones said, her spirits high. Hey, everyone, how have you been lately? I asked. Cece just told me all about that cool, mysterious guy of yours, Mrs. Jones shared with me. Who's that? I thought to myself. I realized I'd hardly been able to keep anything from anyone. You mean that gentleman over there? His knee looks just like a hot coffee pot, Mrs. Jones reminded me. Oh, right, it's him. What's wrong with him? He's been coming here for breakfast and lunch both this morning and at noon, Cece told me. He seems really disappointed he hasn't seen you. Come on, he doesn't even know I exist. I said. Who knows? I think you've got a new admirer lately, Mrs. Jones said, sounding incredibly excited. I just shook my head and went back to burying myself in work. If Alpha shows up twice more today, I'll finally be able to put to rest any notion that this is just a coincidence. What on earth does he want from me? Does he really think I'm some kind of rogue? There's not a single wolf pack around here. There's no way he'd be worried I'd trespass on their territory. Throughout the entire dinner service, my mind kept racing. That alpha wolf still hadn't shown up yet. Maybe he didn't even show up for dinner service at all. Could I talk to Mrs. Jones and then take the evening shift for a few weeks? I was just thinking of coming up with a good reason to bring it up when the door opened and Alpha walked in. My new plan instantly fell apart. As usual, he headed straight for my section. Cece, I started to say, but she quickly raised her hand to interrupt me. Don't even bother, Amy. It's time you put aside that little girl attitude and start dealing with him properly. He clearly wants you to keep giving in to him. Every single time, he sits right in your section, and every time, he picks a table you've already served. Now, smile, Cece said, and go over there and see what that big guy's up to. I have no intention of doing that, I retorted. Too bad. Just hurry up and go. There's a table of my own waiting for me to attend to. The only reason I said yes is because I love you, she told me. Well, if that's the case, then I really do have to go over there. It's okay. I'm sitting right in the middle of the restaurant. Nothing's going to happen here. At most, he'll just chat with me for a few minutes. Taking a deep breath, I headed toward his table.
Mummy.
I'll be your server today. What would you like to order? I said in my energetic, professional voice. Hello, Amy. I'm Finley. You're really hard to find, he replied in a deep, soothing voice.
What? Could you please repeat that?
I asked. He chuckled softly. No big deal. I'll have the pork chop.
Got it.
And what would you like to drink? A Coke, please. Right away, I said, grabbing his menu, turning around and quickly walking toward. I am Amelia, a werewolf who failed to awaken her wolf spirit for 18 years. On my 18th birthday celebration, my boyfriend publicly broke up with me and humiliated me, saying, "The weak don't deserve to be loved." 4 years later, I am constantly pestered by Fenrir, the mysterious alpha, while my ex-boyfriend is also trying to get back together with me. The kitchen to place his order. First, I handed him a Coke, then I brought over his meal. We were both polite and courteous, yet he didn't make any effort to strike up a conversation. I felt relieved, almost as if I'd overreacted. After all, nothing was likely to happen at all. It wasn't until I handed him the bill that things started to change. Dinner rush was long over, and the restaurant was almost empty, save for a local couple sitting in the corner, quietly sipping coffee. I walked over to his table and placed the bill there. Just as I was about to leave, he called out softly, almost under his breath, but loud enough for me to hear clearly. I froze instantly and turned around to look at him. I think we ought to have a chat, he said to me. I don't think it's necessary, I replied in a voice just as soft as his. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips. But far from making him seem more attractive, it didn't add even a tiny bit of charm. I've got no ill intentions toward you, little wolf cub, he said. I snorted derisively. Little wolf cub? Don't make me laugh. Little wolf cub, my ass. Then just say it, I challenged him. But not here. There are too many ears around, and it'd be way too easy for someone to overhear us. Let's find a more private spot. That's right. I'm definitely not going to meet a strange man alone, especially a strange wolf. I'm not exactly dying to die, you know, I shot back. I promise you, as long as I'm here, you'll be perfectly safe, he assured me. What predator would ever say something like that? I interjected, and his laughter erupted once again. Guess you're right. So how about we talk somewhere public, he asked. I sighed. Truthfully, I didn't really feel like talking to him at all, but on the other hand, I had this nagging feeling that unless I spoke up, he'd never leave me alone. I can tell Sheriff Finley that he's been stalking me, or I can tell Jesse. Either way, I'm sure they'll find a way to get him out of town. But the key is find a way. Facing an alpha, there's actually not much they can do. All right. There's a little path behind the library that leads down to the lake. There are some picnic tables over there. No one uses them before noon, I told him. He nodded. When can I see you? I'm off tomorrow. Let's meet at 10 in the morning. I'll be waiting for you, Amy, he said to me. I could hear him chuckling softly. He left shortly after, leaving a generous tip.